as I watch and observe those around me in the world and the arrogance and the selfish and the pride, and even within the community of Yahuah and those that are claiming the name, but yet I see pride, I see this arrogance about them, that they know something, that there's something special, that they are the bloodline, that they are the chosen ones. There's just so much that people don't understand the error of their ways and how the pride can easily creep in there and the destruction that it brings to the one that possesses it. For we are warned to guard our hearts against pride, lest we too fall into the same condemnation as HaSatan. As we're told in 2 Timothy 3, verses 2 and 4, when men shall be lovers of their own selves, boasters, proud, they're heady, high-minded. So I believe this is a timely message warning men of the sin and the destruction of pride due to Yahuwah's hatred for it and his judgment against it. See, pride is excessive belief in one's own abilities that interferes with the individual's recognition of the unmerited favor of Yahuwah. It has been called the sin from which all others arise. Pride is also known as haughtiness, arrogance, conceit, inordinate self-esteem, vanity, and vainglory. As I search the word of Yahuwah, I find that Yahuwah hates the sin of pride seemingly more than any other sins. Truly, Yahuwah hates all sin and will punish all sin if not forgiven. For Yahuwah cannot condone anything contrary to his kadosh nature. But his hatred seems to go out more forcibly against this sin of pride, for it robs him of his esteem. And through rebellious, sinful men, pride even tries to take him off his throne. The sin of pride is the sin of sins. It was this sin, we're told, which transformed HaSatan, an anointed Malach of Yahuwah, the very seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty, into HaSatan, the father of lies, the one for whom Gehenna was created. Pride in the Hebrew is the Gemal, the Aleph, and the Hey. When we put this together, it starts to paint another picture for us. That, we gather as we walk, these strong power leaders. As we look, it reveals through the breath that we breathe, the arrogance, those things that are about us. Pride. Gaha is the Strong's 1344. It comes from the root, 1347, which I found interesting to mean redemption, which occurs a total of 23 times and includes are the ideas of arrogance and cynical insensitivity to the needs of others. Pride is both a disposition, an attitude, and a type of conduct. The synonym, gabab, it means to be high. While used in a variety of senses, the normal meaning is pride or arrogance. In particular, an inner attitude of pride, often linked with parts of the human body, which we find in Isaiah 2:11 and Isaiah 2:17. There's pride of the eyes, Psalms 101, verse 5, and Isaiah 5:15. Pride of the heart, Ezekiel 28:2 and Ezekiel 28:5, as well as Ezekiel 28, verse 17. Pride of the spirit, Proverbs 16, verse 18, and Ecclesiastes 7, verse 8. And of one's mouth or speech, as we find in 1 Samuel 2, verse 3. Pride of the classic text of Jeremiah 48:29 includes the words pride, conceit, arrogance, and haughtiness. 15 Tanakh texts contain the word arrogance. Nearly half of them, 7 in the prophets. Isaiah 2:17, as well as 9 verse 9 and 13:11, Jeremiah 13 verse 15, as well as 48 verse 29, Ezekiel 7 verse 10, Hosea 5:5, as well as 7:10. 5 references are in poetical text in Job 35:12, as well as Psalms 10 verse 2 and 17 verse 10 and 73 verse 8, as well as Proverbs 8 verse 13. And 3 others are found in Deuteronomy 1:43, 1 Samuel 2 verse 3 rather, and 15 verse 23. But what constitutes a proud person? The negative sense points to a sinful individual who shifts ultimate confidence from Yahuah, his creator, to himself. In the wisdom literature, the proud are distinct from the righteous and the humble. Here the term is applied to non-Yasharalites rather than Yasharalites or Yasharal. The Septuagint uses hyperphano, meaning one who is insolent, presumptuous, or arrogant, a scoffer or a mocker, according to Psalms 119 verse 21 and Psalms 119:51, as well as Proverbs 3:34. So when the prophets accuse Yasharal of pride in Jeremiah 13:9, Ezekiel 7 verse 10, Ezekiel 7 verse 20, and 16:56, Hosea 5:5, as well as 7:10, and Amos 6:8, as well as 8 and 7, and Zephaniah 2:10, the word hybristes connotes a wanton, an insolent person. Thus, in the Tanakh books, the prideful are generally associated with the wicked, the arrogant, the presumptuous, which means failing to observe the limits of what is permitted or appropriate. And those who are insolent, showing a rude or an arrogant lack of respect towards Yahuah. See, most of the adjectives joined with pride in the Tanakh are negative in connotation, including words such as stubborn in Leviticus 26:19, overweening in Isaiah 16 verse 6, willful in Isaiah 10 verse 12, and great is in Jeremiah 13:9. Most of the synonyms give a negative sense or contempt, which we find in Psalms 31:18, of wrongdoing, as in Job 33:17, arrogance, as in Proverbs 8:13, Isaiah 2:11, Isaiah 2:17, and 9:9. Insolence, as found in Isaiah 16:6, and conceit, as found in Jeremiah 48:29. See, the sin of pride is a preoccupation with self. It is very fitting that the middle letter of the word is I. Pride is all about me, myself, and I. So even as the word pride is centered upon an I, in the sin itself is also centered upon I. How you have fallen from the Shamayim, O shining one, son of the morning. As you see this in the most translations, you're going to find Lucifer there. It's not the name of HaSatan. It means, O shining one, that word Hallel, Strong's 1966. Let me continue on. Son of the morning, how you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into the Shemayim. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahuah. I will also sit on the mount of the congregations of the farthest side of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High, yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, to the lowest depths of the pit. Isaiah 14, verses 12 through 15. Our fall begins with I. So if you are preoccupied with yourself, you are suffering from the sin of pride. Shaul said, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up, it edifies. That's why we're told to love one another. The things that Yahuah hates, pride heads the list of the 7 deadly sins held to be fatal to spiritual progress, which are pride, covetousness, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and slothfulness. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren. My son, keep your father's commandments and do not forsake your mother's teachings. Proverbs 6, verses 16 through 20. If you notice carefully, you will see that the number one on this list of sins which Yahuwah hates is the sin of pride, a proud look. Why is that? Consider, pride is the sin that caused the archangel to fall into destruction. Pride is the sin that led Yasharal to reject all the prophets that Yahuwah had sent to warn them of their evil ways. So we see then that Yahuwah's word plainly declares that he hates pride, for it is an abomination to him, as we read in Proverbs 16, verse 5. Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to Yahuwah. That word abomination, it means that Yahuwah loathes or abhors or is disgusted with everyone who is proud in his heart. Pride and arrogance and the evil way, the perverted mouth do I hate. Proverbs 8:13. Pride is a sin, a wicked sin, a high look and a proud heart. And the plowing of the wicked is sin. Proverbs 21:4. So you see, pride merits no divine response. Yea, Yahuwah revolts from it. Though Yahuwah be high, yet he has respect unto the lowly. But the proud he knows afar off. Psalms 138, verse 6. Therefore we read that destruction accompanies pride. Job 26:12. Yahuwah will destroy the house of the proud. Proverbs 15:25. Also in Proverbs 16:18 we read, pride or arrogance goes before destruction, and a haughty or arrogance or arrogant spirit before a fall. Oh, how we need to hear Yahuwah's word that he hates the proud in heart, and that if he turns not in repentance, Yahuwah will cast the proud man into Gehenna along with HaSatan. The scriptures not only abound with references which show Yahuwah's hatred of this sin, but they also describe a proud, a haughty, a conceited, vain, a glorious, boastful man as being a child of HaSatan. Why? Because when HaSatan was in the Shemayim as the highest created being in the universe, the head Moloch in his heart was lifted up in pride, and he fell to become HaSatan the deceiver. It destroyed him from within. Also, the word of Yahuwah describes pride as being the source of contention among men. Only by pride comes contention. He that is of proud heart stirs up strife, but he that puts his trust in Yahuwah shall be made fat. Proverbs 13:10 and 28:25. Thus says Yahuwah, in this manner I will ruin the pride of Yehudah and the great pride of Jerusalem. This evil people who refuse to hear my words, who walk in the imagination of their heart, and walk after other Elohim to serve them and worship them, shall be just like this shash, which is profitable for nothing. Hear and give ear. Do not be proud, for Yahuwah has spoken. But if you will not hear it, my soul will weep in secret for your pride. Jeremiah 13:9, 10, 15, and 16. Pride is the sin that causes the Pharisees to reject Yahuwah as their Mashiach. They crucified Yahusha instead. Their pride was the sin of the Assembly of Yahuah that led to their incredible blindness. They couldn't see that Yahusha, the son of Yahuwah had sent him there. As the Tanakh, the Torah had mentioned, it had prophesied, it had described in great detail. Yet they refused to receive him as Mashiach, as the son of Yahuwah. The one, the prophesied one, the anointed one. the one that would come and atone for the sins of those that would believe. Within all of those that are in the world, we have an opportunity, but yet the Pharisees couldn't see it because of their pride and their arrogance. We see other examples in the parable of Nebuchadnezzar. The great Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar suffered from the sin of pride and lost his kingdom for it. His story is given to us so that we might learn our lesson from him. The lesson being, Yahuah is quite able to humble the proud and more than happy to do so. After being warned by Daniel, the prophet of Yahuah, Nebuchadnezzar looked out across the great city of Babylon and said in his pride, "This is not Babylon the Great, which I myself have built as a royal residence by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty." While the words were still in his mouth, a voice spoke from the Shemayim. "King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you, and they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make you eat grass like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he chooses." And at that very hour the word was fulfilled concerning Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from men, and ate grass like oxen. His body was wet with the dew of the Shemayim, till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. Nebuchadnezzar was later given the opportunity to repent, and upon doing so, he was given back his kingdom by Yahuah. His unmerited favor was at display here. This is what he learned through his ordeal. At the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to the Shemayim, and my understanding returned to me. His understanding returned back into him. And I Baruch the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever. Has your eyes been opened? Has your understanding been given to you? Has your stubbornness been laid down? Do you acknowledge who is the King of Kings? Do you understand the one that we live for? That we give him the honor and all the esteem. For he's the one that lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of the Shemayim and among the inhabitants of the earth. No one can restrain his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. Now the lesson we are to learn from Nebuchadnezzar's experience is this: those who walk in pride, he is able to put down. The parable of Belshazzar. Nebuchadnezzar was extended Yahuah's unmerited favor, and he repented of the sins of pride. His grandson, however, was not given the same opportunity. Perhaps that is because Nebuchadnezzar's experience was meant to serve as a lesson to us all. And Belshazzar, who knew of his grandfather's rebuke, he refused to learn his grandfather's lesson. On the night of King Belshazzar's demise, Daniel the prophet stood before him and said, "O King, the Most High, Elohim gave Nebuchadnezzar your father a kingdom and majesty, glory and honor. And because of the majesty that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whoever he wished, he executed. Whomever he wished, he kept alive. Whoever he wished, he set up. And whoever he wished, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened in pride, he was disposed from his kingly throne and they took his glory from him. Then he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the Shemayim, till he knew that the Most High Elohim rules in the kingdom of men, and appoints over it whomever he chooses. But you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all of this, and you have lifted yourself up against Yahuah of the Shemayim. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldean, was slain. So how pride works? By looking at the lives of these two men, we can learn how the sin of pride might work in our own lives. Nebuchadnezzar, on the one hand, didn't acknowledge Yahuah for what he had given him. In this case, the throne upon which he sat. He gave himself credit for his success, and in doing so, he compounded his sin by robbing Yahuah of the esteem which he was due. Belshazzar, on the other hand, was so arrogant and foolish as he deliberately insulted and provoked Yahuah. He defiled the vessels of gold and silver which had been dedicated to Yahuah by using them in a drunken orgy. And he did so knowingly full well how Yahuah had rebuked his grandfather not many years before. From these two examples, we see how pride can distort our perceptions of reality. Pride must obscure the truth simply because the truth is often very humbling, something contrary to the sin of pride. Nebuchadnezzar's pride deceived him into thinking something that wasn't true. He believed that he had built the great Babylonian empire by his own wisdom and by his might, when in fact it was Yahuah who made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and boundaries of their dwelling. Belshazzar also suffered from a distorted perception of reality. His pride gave him a sense of security. He felt safe upon his throne, behind his high walls, safe enough to mock Yahuah. But he was a fool to think that he could exalt himself against his maker. And so we see that pride can blind us to the reality of our situation. We also see that pride can lead us into further sin against Yahuah. Pride led Nebuchadnezzar to rob Yahuah of the esteem due to his name, while pride led Belshazzar to insult Yahuah to his face. But Yahuah will not be mocked by man, nor will he be robbed by us. Will a man rob Yahuah? Yet you have robbed me. You are accursed with a curse, for you have robbed me. And do not be deceived, Yahuah is not mocked, for whoever a man sows, that he will also reap. So the sin of pride is such a dangerous enemy simply because it pits you against your maker. And Yahuah is an enemy to be feared. Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world, that is, whoever chooses to embrace the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, makes himself an enemy of Yahuah. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. 1 John 2:16, a world which was like HaSatan, created absolutely perfect, but has since, like HaSatan, departed from its creator, Yahuah, and has created for itself its own abominable ways. The spirit of pride. In Genesis 4, Yahuah had revealed unto Cain and Abel that the only approach to have a Kadosh Elohim was to be upon the basis of the shedding of blood, upon the basis of substitution, and that is in Yahuah's appointed way, by offering of a lamb. Scripture says that Abel came this way, admitted he was a sinner, offering his blood sacrifice, but Cain, in the pride of his heart, brought of the fruit of the ground, by bringing an offering of his own hands. He thus said to Yahuah that he was not a sinner and that Yahuah had judged him wrongly. And did you know man is still saying the same thing today? No need for me to come by the way of the blood redemption, for I am not the sinner, Yahuwah says I am. Yes, spiritual pride lifts a man up to defy Yahuwah, saying he is not a sinner. Yahuwah, in his sovereignty, has put us into the family into which we were born, the nation into which we were born, the color of our skin he gave us, the environment, and all that goes to make up our lives. We receive nothing spiritually or physically except it comes to us from above. So how can we be proud? If we have received anything in this life, it has come from Yahuwah. 1 Samuel 2:6 says, Yahuwah kills and makes alive. He brings low and he lifts up. He rises up the poor out of the dust, and he lifts up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among the princes, and to make them an inheritance of the throne of glory or esteem. For the pillar of the earth are Yahuwah's, and he has set the world upon them. Again, we read in Psalm 75, verses 6 and 7, promotion comes neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south, but Yahuwah is the judge. He puts down one and sets up another. Yes, all things are in the hands of our sovereign Yahuwah, and all things come from him. So of what do we have to be proud? How pride manifests itself in our own lives. If you happen to think that you're worth more to Yahuwah than some other person, you've fallen victim to the sin of pride. See, it distorts our view of reality, because the truth of the matter is there is no partiality with Yahuwah, nor does he regard the rich more than the poor, for they are all the work of his hands. Or if you look down on others because you think you're more righteous than they are, consider the parable which Yahusha gave to us, who, though they thought that they were better than others, and who looked down on everyone else, do you know that pride comes in many forms? One prides himself in his humbleness. Another prides himself in his learning. Another prides himself on his ability to do things others cannot do. Another prides himself on the fact that he is not like other men, and yet he commits the same sins the other men commit. Another prides himself on the fact that he is not a drunkard, yet he gambles. Another prides himself on the fact that he is not a wife beater, but yet he is a tyrant in his home. Another prides himself that he would not steal, and yet he robs his soul of the Shemayim by staying away from Yahuwah. Another prides himself on his ability to invent and make things while he cannot control his own passions. Another prides himself on having the truth of Yahuwah's word, and yet he will not share it with others. He holds it to himself and to his friends. Another prides himself on the fact that he is not as other men. He looks down upon the weak and sick, the poor and the needy, and gives them no helping hand. He cries, let them get it the way I got mine. I worked hard for what I have. Do you think I'm to share it with someone else? What gives us the right to look down on others? Why would we boast of our skills and our abilities? For what makes you different from another? What do you have that you did not receive from Yahuwah? Now, if you did indeed receive it, why do you boast? Be careful not to take credit for Yahuwah's work in your life. Know that Yahuwah himself is Elohim. It is he who has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Never presume to say to yourself, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. But instead remember Yahuwah your Elohim, for it is he who gives you the power to get wealth. He is the Elohim who holds your breath in his hands and owns all of your ways. It was Yahuwah who gave you your natural skills and ability. And he didn't do it so that you can despise others. Believe it or not, Yahuwah gave you the skills and the ability so that you can serve others. That's what he warns from us. That's what he wants from us. That's what he desires from us, for us to love each other. Yahusha came not to be served, but to serve. Yahusha taught, whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. The parable of the Pharisees and the tax collector. The two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus to himself, Yahuwah, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortionists, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess, and the tax collector stands afar off, would not so as much as to raise his eyes to the Shemayim, but beat his breast, saying, Yahuwah, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Luke 18, verses 9 and 14. The Apostle John tells us the story how one night Yahusha rose from supper and laid aside his garments, took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. So when he had washed their feet, taken his garments and sat down again, he said to them, Do you know what I have done to you? You call me a teacher or rabbi, and Adon, your master, your Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Adon, your master, your Lord, or your rabbi, your teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, Baruch are you if you do them. Therefore, do nothing out of self-ambition or with a prideful arrogance, but in humility consider others more than yourself. Each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of others. Your attitude should be the same as that of Yahusha, who, being Elohim, made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on the tree. So if Yahusha so loved us this much, we also should love one another. So how do we fight pride? So how do we fight against the sin of pride? First, we need to recognize that we have a problem with pride. This might be the hardest part because as we have seen that pride skews our perception of reality. It lies to us. It says to us, you don't have a problem with pride. You're not being proud. You're just being honest with yourself. You're better than everyone else, and you deserve all the esteem. You establish yourself by your own wisdom and your might. You. And it feels good. It's hard to see the truth when your own heart is lying to you. It's hard to stop and think, no, I'm not worth more than anyone else. Yahuwah loves us all the same, and his opinion is the only one that really matters. And as for my esteem, I didn't establish myself by my wisdom and might. I've just used the gift which Yahuwah has given me to do his will. It's hard to humble yourself like that when you're stuck in pride. And it's hard to see the truth when you're lying to yourself. So you're going to need help. Yahuwah says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, Yahuwah, search the heart. I test the mind, even give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doing. Your heart might able to trick you, but it cannot trick Yahuwah. So the very first thing to do is to get on your knees and to pray. To search me, O Yahuwah, and see if there is any pride in me. I ask Yahuwah, please have mercy upon me. O Yahuwah, according to your loving kindness, according to your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me and cleanse me from my sins. By asking for Yahuwah's help, you're actually humbling yourself before him, and Yahuwah will honor that. The scripture says Yahuwah resists the proud, but he gives unmerited favor to the humble. This isn't just a warning to the proud. It's a promise to the humble. If you humble yourself before Yahuwah in prayer, Yahuwah will pour his unmerited favor, his grace upon you. And while sin might be able to overcome you, it's no match for Yahuwah's awesome power. So pray, pray, pray. By praying, you're not only petitioning Yahuwah to intercede on your behalf, which he'll do by his unmerited favor if you're sincere. You're actually combating the sin of pride yourself by humbling yourself before Yahuwah. Humility is the opposite of pride. And the next thing to do after Yahuwah starts to show you areas where your pride is, to fight it mentally. When you experience sudden pride and you recognize it for what it is, mentally expose it. Admit to yourself that you're being proud and ask Yahuwah to forgive you. The final thing to do is to tell your brothers and sisters in Yahusha that you're struggling with pride and ask them to pray for you. Confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. So let us examine ourselves regularly in this regard and learn to spot the workings of pride in our heart. One quick test. How do you react when someone criticizes you for something? Is your initial reaction one of resentment? How dare you? How dare they say this about me? Then pride is at work in your heart. You see, anger is a fruit that grows on the root of pride. So why do we get angry when someone criticizes us? Our pride is hurt. The fact that the accusations may not be true really doesn't matter. Your reaction is what matters. If the accusation is unfounded, don't worry about it. Yahuwah knows the truth, and the truth will set you free. So our Mashiach Yahusha was falsely accused and committed his case to his Father and asked him to forgive them, for they know not what they do. So Yahuwah resists the proud, but he gives that unmerited favor to the humble. James 4:6. The pride of your heart has deceived you. Obadiah 3. Yes, every proud person must be brought down. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and Yahuwah alone shall be exalted in that day. For the day of Yahuwah of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. Isaiah 2, verse 11 and 12. Hallelujah. Father, we thank you that you are revealing these truths to us that are so powerful, so purposeful, so needed, so that we can all look into ourselves and that we can see, do we have these type of tendencies? Do we have a spirit of pride within us that we need to let go and what we need to release unto you, Father? For this is a very dangerous sin that hides itself very well. So we thank you that you exposing these things to us, that you're exposing this within us so that we can release it, so we can let it go, so that we can be free and humble before you, Father. Let your will continue to be done as we discuss this matter. Hallelujah, Father. Bring forth your wisdom and your understanding. Lead us and guide us by your Ruach, we pray. Hallelujah. 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 Brother Rod, what we got about some pride and the destruction that befalls the prideful man?
You got that right. All I can say is praise Yah for your audio, because there's absolutely no way that Yahuwah gave you that message. You know what I mean? There's no way I could have read those notes in your absence and been able to convey what Yahuwah gave you personally. You know what I mean? I think that's important because he speaks through us. Otherwise, I'm just speaking words and reading words, and that could become prideful. You know what I mean? Literally. So praise Yah for what we learned just in that this morning. But man, you know, You said the sin of pride, and it's interesting how 1 John 2:16 connects all of sin. All of sin is lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. It's the calling card of HaSatan. It's the calling card of the enemy. It's the only way in which he presents himself to you. You know, in the garden, he presented Eve, you know, what her eyes saw, the fruit, what her flesh felt, wanting that fruit to taste it. You know, the pride, you know, receiving that knowledge and being knowledgeable, even more knowledgeable of or of equal to Yah. You know how he approached Yahusha. You know, turn the stones into bread. You know, just after he finished fasting. You know, the flesh, looking and seeing. You know, the kingdoms. You know, the eyes, casting himself down, the pride of him being able to lift himself up to show that he's the true Savior, so Messiah. So, you know, I just want to, you know, want us all to be mindful that every sin is that lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And, you know, we have to be mindful to see those things coming afar off, to see them welling up in your heart, to know the warning signs, like you said, to be truthful and honest with your brothers and your sisters, you know. And it can happen real subtly too. You know, it can happen with a compliment. Someone give you a compliment. You know, great message, brother Rick. You know, next thing you know, you can give the message of messages, you know, before the kings of the world, you know. And that's extreme, but that's how it starts, you know. Rather than understanding there is a honest and balanced way to truly be able to accept the compliment, but also understand where the idea comes from, where the oration comes from, where the mindset comes from. It comes from Yah, you know, because otherwise we're babbling, walking around, following the ways of the world, you know, and we know that. So it's very, very important for us to always have a balanced look at even the things that we do, because there are some things that we are to take pride in with what Yahuwah has given us, but only that we're doing them for him. You know what I mean? Like, there always has to be a connection to what you see is not me. I can show you me. I can show you Rod, you know, what Rod used to be. But what you see is the protection of Yah in my life, you know, the guidance of Yah in my life, the direction, you know, and the following. So I think it's important that we always stay flat-footed and balanced in that, and that we're not afraid to speak it to each other as well. You know, if we see something, you know, not to attack one another, but to remind, you know, brother, sister, you know, think about what you're saying. You know, how are you viewing this? What do you think you see? You know, because you're veering off the path here. So we have to be willing to be each other's keeper, you know, in that same sense, because pride of life is connected to all of sin, you know, and it's the big hole that we all fall into. You know? So if we have a view of all those things, and we depend on the Ruach to guide us at all times and to listen to it, because that's the problem, is we cut the ears off and we listen to ourselves rather than listen to what he's telling us. So yeah, that's it, brother. I'm sure we got a full house today. I'm sure a lot of people want to share, but that's what I saw today in the message.
Praise Yahuwah. You know, it really brought me back to our Genesis study with Joseph. You know, how that pride could have gotten in there so easily, you know, from the young age even, you know, but we don't see that represented. But hey, you know, if he chooses to use me to speak the message of all messages, if that comes at some point, then that's his will be done, you know. You know, I'm sure that it's going to be like one of these other messages that he gives, you know. I never know what it's going to be, but I hear and I see, and it's and those things that inspire me here, because I'm seeing it a lot, even in the circles around me, the puffed up arrogance that I see in those that claim to have the knowledge of the truth, and that arrogance or pride is showing, and how easily that can destroy somebody or a ministry, when you allow that to get in there. And it's just that sin. It has a way of growing. You just like fruit, a bowl of fruit. You get one bad one in there, it'll start affecting the whole bunch. So, it's easy you got to watch out for that. And I think that it behooves us as a family to be able to look out for that for one another too. If we start seeing something like that arising, to say, hey, don't know, but I just want to point this out to you, because it's that dangerous, and if we are here to help one another, we got to be able to see things that they can't see in themselves sometimes,
Absolutely.
But anyways, this is a very deep subject, and I'm sure it's going to really expand as we continue to talk about it. So, Brother Jadiel, are you there? Are you ready to give us your insight, brother? No movement. All right, I'll come back to you, Brother Jadiel. A couple others here. Brother Kef, I see you. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom, brother. Good to see you this morning.
Shabbat Shalom, bro.
Anything you'd like to add this morning about the destruction of pride?
Man, it was well done message. Well done message, bro. I think we all struggle with pride in so many different ways. Sometimes we may have pride and we don't want to check ourselves, But not much to say. I'm just listening to what you were saying and meditating on it, and seeing what the Spirit is saying to me personally when it comes to pride.
Oh yeah.
So that's something that pride is something that to me is something that I always try to put it on check, because it creeps in very easily. And that's something that I'm always mindful of. And if I am proud, I just pray for Yah to always break that down. You know what I'm saying? Because to be honest with you, to be humble is something that we always got to strive for. We always got to strive to be humble. And if somebody call me humble, I'm already saying like, nah, I don't really take it as, I don't take it as something to be like, it's something that I always need to work on. But it's a great message, man. So I saw the topic, and I was like, you know what? Let me see what Brother Rick is going to be talking about, because I really, pride is something to me that it really, we all need to attack. We always need to be attacked because it creeps in very easily in our lives, and sometimes we don't know, and when somebody address it, how sometimes people could address, wow, you got this going on, like, we can get, our head could get pretty big when, when we get compliments, like Rob was saying. And compliments is something that we got to be very careful too, because sometimes it goes to our heads and we're thinking that we got all things together, but it's actually Yah is the one that, every good thing comes from Yah, and he's the one that revealed things, and we need to be able to express that in the way that Yah is getting the glory, not ourselves. So, but I thank you, bro, for the message, and that's something I'm taking heed to, Shalom, bro.
Praise Yahuwah. Well, it's always good to hear from you, brother. And it is something that not very many want to teach on. They don't want to tackle it. I guess they don't want pride to get in the way. But anyways, it's one of those subjects that we got to all really focus on and look at, because it's something that's very easy, can destroy our walk, and really separate us once again. And if we're fighting this battle to get closer to Yahuwah, that's the opposite. That'll push you away from him and take you away. So we definitely have to remain humble and understand that it's him that gives all things, the ability to do all things. So we keep things in the right perspective, because if not, we start seeing ourselves as being the one that's making things happen, that'll definitely get you in trouble. So Anyways, you there, Brother Jadiel, before I move on to Brother JP? Brother JP, are you with us? There he is. Good morning,
So,
brother.
of course, by shalom, Mishpacha.
Yeah, prayers work, brother. Prayers work.
Hallelujah, Yahuah. In the name of his only begotten son, Yahusha HaMashiach. Gave us a beautiful day. You know, I was talking to the brother Nathaniel, and a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me about the pride, and they were conversating about it within the fellowship that he's a part of out there in his area. And it really had me thinking. It just had me thinking, like, wow, like, you know, pride, like just how it's the like the, I don't know if I would say the root, but it seems like the root, you know, of sin and of destruction. Like the scriptures, I just kept hearing that kind of, you know, as you were reading scriptures, it was like this is where the destruction comes from, you know. And I've definitely contemplating on this on myself, you know, because we could definitely, you know, we can get into that area, brother, like where we're just not going a certain way or doing a certain thing just because of ourselves. And I really, you know, and this message is definitely on time. Yahuwah is always on time for all of us. And for myself, it was on time in that sense to say, you know, well, for me, it was like it was just like a reassurance from Yahuwah. Like, yeah, you're doing the right thing. Go and keep examining yourself. Like I told you, you know what I mean? Like I told you, examine yourself and make sure. And I don't know. I'm just finding that pride is, I think the brother Kepa just said, like we all can have a little bit of it. And how do we, and I like what you said at the end of your message about, you know, when somebody speaks to you, you know, how do you feel when they're going against what you're saying? And that hit me, because I was like, whoa, because I know I've been that way sometimes, where somebody comes at me with something that I don't believe or I don't think is correct, and instantly I'm already like on edge. And it really just hit me, like I said, whoa, you know, that's amazing. That was great to say that, because I think we all need to know, like, which I'm trying my best to be slow to speak. You know, slow to speak and slow to wrath, like scripture says, because I think at that point, when you do feel that, when you feel that fire come in you, like, oh, you want to just lash out, or you want to just go against whatever they're saying, because you feel that you're, you know, what you're confident. I'm confident a lot of times in what I'm knowing by Yahuwah. And so I'm like, no, there's no way. But then it's just like, hold on, slow down. You know, go about this in a loving way, and understand that maybe they don't know you. And, you know, just my mind was to have to work differently. So just with that being said, I love that portion. I love that portion you brought out, because it really showed how we have to examine ourselves that way. And it was an easy way to examine yourself, because we've all been in those positions, I believe. And so lastly, I would say the verse that just stuck with me was Proverbs 14, verse 3. It said, in the mouth of the foolish is a rod of pride, but the lips of the wise shall preserve them. That verse you gave right there, brother, was like, oh yeah, that's perfect. That's just perfect, because, you know, he says, but the lips of the wise shall preserve you. You know, it's like perfect. That's beautiful. So definitely another message to try to put together in a booklet, because people need this. I needed it, you know, I needed it. So praise Yahuwah, brother. Thank you. It was something good to wake up to for me, you know. Shabbat shalom.
It's good for all of us to wake up to, for sure, you know. But, you know, when you think about that, you know, it is the simplest things that will show you that I need some work I need a little more work over here, you know. And these messages are so full when you really get how they speak to different ways, you know, to each of us, you know, things that stick out. and then as we share it, it's like, aha, okay, yeah, you're right. The same way with me, it's like, you hear, you see, you got so many different options that you can choose, and if we really embrace this walk and we allow the love of Yahuwah to really penetrate us and permeate us, when somebody is in that position and they challenging us or they say some things, hey, you know what? I've been there. I know what you're talking about, but let me share, and because that's the wisdom that he's placing upon us to help bring others out of that. And if we get defensive, then we're going to lose them, because it ain't nothing but a battle going to happen right there. Two rams butting heads, you're never going to get nowhere. So, his approach is always best, and if they don't receive it, then, that message really wasn't for them then. So now I guess you just got to check, your discernment a little better, and who you want to get in those arguments with, those confrontational moments, because they're out there to be had everywhere, as we all have probably experienced at one point or another. But, these kind of subjects are to the root of everything, really, because if you have this, it will hinder you in your walk, and we're kind of in a desired approach where we're trying to get free from the bondages of things so that we can be empowered to do his will and his purpose. We want to see him working through us, whether it's just a spoken word that we say to somebody to give them comfort when they need to hear it. There's so many different ways that he can use us, but if pride's in there's no way, because you're not gonna hear him. You're gonna be thinking about yourself. You're gonna hear yourself speaking, and that's something we got to quiet down, is our own hearing ourselves, because we're in constant battle against ourselves. That pride of the flesh, man, is strong. And you got to allow your spirit, man, to be raised up and strong. And that's why we're here. That's why we do the studies we do through the week, these discussions, because it strengthens us, because that faith gets stronger as it continues to hear the word spoken. And in those revelations start popping off, like those aha moments. Now you start to, okay, I put this into practice. Before you know it, you're a weapon for Yahuwah, and Yahuwah needs weapons in his army. He needs some soldiers that are willing to speak the truth, to destroy, the works and the faulty lies of the enemy. So, hey, let's let go of the pride stuff, because, it doesn't belong in Yahuwah's kingdom, in his people. So it's a powerful message when you really think about it. And I encourage everybody to go back through again and let these scriptures speak to us, so we can examine ourselves, because really this whole walk is about that. It's a constant examining of ourselves, allowing the Torah, the Tanakh, the scriptures, to reveal to us what's still in us that needs to have removed, because it's that potter, he's working this clay, and, we got a lot of ugly stuff in us sometimes, some more than others, but some of them come out harder. He got to work that harder. He's got to let that stuff come to the top so he can get rid of it, so this is one of them, this is a sneaky one, so we have to be aware, so we don't get deceived by it that easy, so.
And so the opposite of pride, would it be meekness?
Yeah, humility. Yeah. Yep.
Humility.
Yep.
So, because I was just thinking about, as you're speaking, like that would be the area where you want to strengthen in, like strengthen yourself, and like by it's kind of like a balance beam. Like once you start to weaken one side, the other side gets stronger.
Yeah.
And so I just pray for that for all of us, as I keep everybody in our prayers and trying to figure out how to continue to walk stronger and stronger every day, So praise Yahuwah, my brother. Thank you for the message. It's a beautiful message. Like I said, it was perfect, because Nathaniel was just talking to me a couple weeks ago, I believe, about pride, and I was just I thought about it, but to get this message was like I said, always on time. So hallelujah, brother.
Hallelujah. Well, brother Nathaniel, you're gonna have to have a little conversation here then today, since you guys were. Brother Rod?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something to what JP was saying, because he asked what's the opposite of pride, and you said humbleness. And I think there's a tendency, and you can see it in people that are attempting not to be prideful, but there's also a mask of humility that can come with it if you're not careful, because you'll say words of humility, or even try to posture your body in a humility, being in a humility type way, right? But it's false. So the prayer is that he will give us a true identity of humility. You know what I mean? Because what we don't want to do, and this is for all of us, because we can, give a compliment. No, man, praise Yah, it's from him. But in my heart, I'm like, yeah, right. And I think there's a balance that we have to have, specifically in dealing with our brothers and sisters, in being able to allow other people to express what they see in you, but you receive it with all balance, all purity, and seeing only what Yah is doing, and then expressing that. Because if we look at it falsely, and we can push people away, and that's the right thing to do either. To give a response that sounds like we're being, we have humility, but not really have humility, is also wrong. So there is something in our understanding that can only come from Yah, in us acting that out. So I just wanted to share that, because it's not just simply, being, having humility, but having true humility, and being able to express that, so that people can learn from it, and it be on. That's what I was looking for: honest humility. You understand what I'm saying? It's a thin line, and that's why it's used by HaSatan, because he gets us every time, and it's connected to all sin. So I just wanted to throw that in, because we can have a battle just in trying to be humble, and that's bondage too. And I don't think Yah wants that for us. So I just wanted to share that.
That's a good point, brother. Yeah, I guess everything that we do needs to be in trueness, allow it to be something that comes from the Father. All right, I got a few hands up. Sister Olive Oil, then Kevin, and then Tony. Shabbat Shalom, sister.
Very sorry about that. I couldn't get myself off mute. Oh gosh, this has been a good study for me. I've actually got anxiety, because I know that there's pride been going on in me, because that's been my prayer that I've been praying with the Father for quite some time. In fact, when I came to my faith, I used to hate my tongue because I spoke too much as a woman, and I'm just sharing this as a testimony. And the one thing I cried out, because I knew that HaSatan had fallen by pride, so I was petrified of becoming this individual, because I knew I was this individual, but I was, as Rod just said, I had false humility as well. And I guess I still have that as well, because a lot of it comes through habit. I think habit of getting, in a habit of, like any habit or addiction, I suppose. And obviously for me, when I first come to the faith many years ago, before I knew Yahuah, I cried and asked the Father, if I'm ever on my high horse, knock me off me ass on me ass. Because I'm laughing now, but really I have anxiety from this teaching, because I know that I have at this time pride within me. That's been hard for me to, I don't think it's as easy as a magic wand and it just goes, it's something that becomes habitual in the body of the house that we live in. And it's also a way and a mechanism, a defense mechanism is the word I'm looking for. We use it to cover things that if revealed, you know, fear is one of them. And one of the scriptures that came to me is Proverbs 8:13. The fear of Yahuah is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, and the evil way and the perverse mouth do I hate. And obviously, because I speak, I've always been a speaker since I was young, and when I came to the faith, I thought to be a woman of valor and stuff was to be quiet, shut up, silence, don't say nothing. And obviously, I know now that's not the case. It's about having, I think JP said it, or Rod, about having the balance in knowing thyself, I think is the word I'm trying to contemplate. And as it stands, I guess today I'm learning myself. And what I do see a lot of the times, I don't actually like facing that woman in the mirror, and actually recognizing like I'm not actually that nice. And obviously the Father has to reveal that to me, so that I don't go too deep as well in self-condemnation, because that can come a part of it, which is again balance. But what I found a story that was quite powerful in reading and scary was the story of Jezebel and Ahab. I mean, that is the most evilest, one of the evil stories of the scriptures, which, you know, the pride resulted in killing an innocent man. I mean, this guy, Ahab, went back to his bed and cried like a baby because he couldn't have land that he wanted, you know, and didn't recognize it. And I think that's the fear for me that I want my family to pray for me about, is the recognizing the pride, you know, recognizing who the enemy is. For me is first self. And once I see her, I'm probably not going to meet HaSatan because the Father will keep me safe. That's my view at this stand today. But yeah, you know, most of the Proverbs are full, and scripture is hammered with things about pride, you know, for sin of their mouth and the words of their lips, let them even be taken in their pride, and for cursing and lying, which they speak, which is Psalms 59:12. That's frightening because it says, let them be taken in their pride. So that means these people, to be taken in their pride, they will not come to know the repentance from their pride. That is frightening.
That's a scary thought right there.
That this does frighten me, this subject, because I know that it's, well, I think for everybody, you know, HaSatan, everyone points to HaSatan, oh, he fell because of his pride, but I think we don't recognize that in that prime thing, we also become exactly the same. Right. You know, why point the finger of HaSatan? He hasn't got no power unless it's been given him from above, until we step out the line first.
Right.
You know, and yeah, this is I want so much to be away from pride, and from within. So it's a good subject. It gave me anxiety. I've actually got anxiety from it. So I know when I get anxiety, I know it's because a button's been touched or pride's been touched on, and it makes you get a stomach funny, and you're thinking, yeah, I can see ya. There you are. But the other scarier one for me is false humility.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, when I'm crying that I'm not crying because I'm being fake.
Right.
How do you be false before the Most High?
Those are all those masks you were talking about, you know, the false humilities, but the condemnation is a dangerous one too, that you can really affect you, that you allow it to. So you have to do it all in balance, just like you said. It's just something that we have to learn. We have to self-examine, and just like you said. So being that this message is spoken, and I'm sure you're not alone here, speaking to all of us in some measure or not, But, you know, you got to take that and you have to examine it. That's part of our process of being purified, being perfected. You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen overnight, like you said. You know,
To-
when this revealed like this, that's the perfect time to start engaging and releasing, you know, and
Yeah.
that's where you're going to get your freedom from. You know,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
just,
sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry. No, like for me, it is frightening because I mean, if we perish in this, we don't get to meet him, and that,
Right.
I mean, that frightens me, because you know, and not only that, the people that we hate in that pride as well is because we don't see it at the time. It's like yeah, I mean, I don't care. I'd rather let it all hang out so it's seen, and let people help me be rid of it, and let us all help each other be rid of it, so that we don't, because you know, what sort of a brother would you be or anybody else if they didn't tell me? Are you going to leave me to die in my own pride? Are you going to leave me to, like,
That's why we need each other.
exactly, yeah, you know, people who cast people off and say, oh, you know, too proud, let's get rid of them, and
right.
or they're too harsh with their lip because they don't understand the person actually can't see their pride right now because they've used it that long as a defense mechanism or as a weapon or as a comfort. It's not always as easy. It's not always as easy to just go get rid of that evil, wicked pride, because some people have mastered it so well. It's become a part of their makeup, and to take that away, people need to be loved, in my view. You know, to say love covers a multitude of sin.
Well, these messages are there to soften the exterior so that he can soften the heart, so that he can remove these things, because they have to be removed. So, you know, the recognition of them, you know, yeah, there's fear and understanding what can happen, but the recognition is the salvation process that's beginning to happen inside of us when we see, when he reveals these things. That anxiety you're seeing, that's a perfect reason to say, I got to let go of some stuff. Help me to see it and help me to remove it, you know, and because of your willingness to say, I know it's here, I sense it, I feel it, that's the first step, just like in any kind of recovery. So, you know,
Yeah.
be encouraged.
Can I ask, how then do you, I mean, how do we know what forms pride is in? Because it comes in many ways, right? You know, how do we know? Because I don't walk around like, oh yeah, you know, look at me, woohoo. You know, I'm not kind of like that kind of person. So it's not kind of like that type of pride. I think it's, I don't know. I'm trying to discover what kind of pride is it?
I think, like you said, there's all types of sources of it, different forms of it. Not all of them are going to stand out as much as others, but like I said, the subtle things, like if somebody says something that goes against what you're doing, does your pride get hurt? You know, that's something simple and basic. But you know, there's other things, you know, that you can look and examine as you're going through. And I think you can use the Ruach as a filtering process. The word is going to be a filtering process. So as you're going through and you start to recognize something, if it's giving you any kind of inkling that there's something there, you need to stop and ponder it, pray about it, and ask for wisdom to see and how to let go of it, you know. And those are the processes that the Ruach has to take you through, you know. And I think that internal discernment that he gives us to allow us to recognize, because now we're connected, we're part of him. He can show us things that are outside of him easily.
Yeah.
You know, those sores, if you will, those little pimples that pop up everywhere that you don't know. You know, that's just an outward expression of what I'm trying to say. You know, they'll pop up. They will reveal themselves.
Yeah.
So,
No, I know I have it. I just don't know which form or what kind it is. I just know I have it, and I know even more from this teaching, because my stomach has always been, you know, your intuition, gut intuition's always been my trigger for me, and I know if I've got it from that as well. So that even if I don't know what the point is or where it is or what it's about, I'll know I've got it, because that's how the Father reveals some stuff to me. I know humility is a key, but when you mentioned in the reading, there was two things that highlighted to me was pride and the word anger and fear. And I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, I suffer from fear and anger, both of them. Not so much fear as much as, well, I do, but I don't mean like
Well,
the
you
way
know,
that people
some of
understand
those
it.
are roots. Some of those
Yeah.
are roots of other things, you know. So if you're recognizing one thing, it can always be a root, or it can lead you to the root. So you got to pay attention to those things. That's all I can really say. You know, we can talk about it a little bit more and maybe work through some of these things and get some better ideas as you and how to work through them. I think that's going to be our best. You know, we start to tackle them as we see them, recognize them, because
Yeah. I don't want people shouting out like, I'm just joking. You know, there it is, writing notes on me and stuff.
well, it ain't got to be like that, but
No, I'm just joking.
very good. Well, I appreciate your input. It's definitely been insightful, and I think it's going to be helpful to others as we all go through this process, because some are going to have more than others to deal with different types that may arise, you know, different forms because of abuses or, you know, different types of personality traits that, you know, we can see these things in many ways because they're accumulated over our life's experiences. So, you know, be strong and keep on pushing on. Be purified. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Abba Father.
Yeah, all right. We got a couple other hands, and where'd they go? How come I don't see them now? I see the things. I know we had Brother Kevin, Gary, and I don't remember who the third one was. But I'm coming to you, Brother Kevin. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, there we go. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I came in late, but the conversation segued from a previous study. I've been studying I've been studying Acts, and I've been studying Job. And during the last study, a sense of this conversation, this topic of pride came up, in so much as during this study, I made a comment about, well, I have so much confidence in the Ruach as I walk that I was almost saying, well, come on, HaSatan, you know, come on and get some. I got something for you. Ran up on some issues, prayed. You know what happened. Everything came out love. I'm like, yeah. So during this conversation, pride came up in that, in so much as that's a prideful position to be in, to call on troubles, to call on, to be prideful and standing there against adversities and the adversary. But at that same light, that pride kicks in right then when it's you're boastfully standing there saying, try me. Now, in all honesty, I was waiting on JDL to come through, because he always fills in all the gaps in any conversation, in any study. He always comes in and he fills them in. So when you went to him and he didn't show up right yet, I was kind of disappointed. That's why I threw my hand up. It's like, where you at, man? I need some filler. But it all comes into just what you was just saying, how that pride, even in the moment of glory, can step up and say, well, what about me? What about what I said? What about my position? I want some recognition. So that's what I, coming in at the tail end of the readings, I said, I know what this is about. And again, here's that pride kicking in. Here's that pride kicking in. And you have to humble yourself. That's where that humility comes in. I always start my prayers when I need to be humble and I know I'm coming in too solid, too confident. I'm coming into my prayers like, now listen here. And that's not how it should be. So I always go in and I say, have mercy. And I think about mercy that really humbles me. because you got to have that mercy. That eliminates pride. That eliminates all of that. I kick in and I just pray for mercy. At that point, I'm in tears. I know I'm humbled. At that point, now I can get on with the prayer of whatever it needs to be. But I can't wait till you put this up, man. Because like I said, I came in on the tail end of it. But man, I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm hungry now.
Awesome. Well, you brought up a good point that makes me bring up another question. Is it okay to be prideful in Yahuah and who Yahuah is? Because you mentioned something, you took it on the personal, like bring it on, but how about having pride in Yahuah? Is that, we can look at pride in a negative sense, but can that same pride be, is it okay to have pride in Yahuah and who Yahuah is to you? I guess that's another of those topics that we can try to touch a little bit on before we can finish this, conclude this study. So appreciate you bringing that, brother. That's another thought that comes up here. So I appreciate your point. Okay, brother Tony Ben Yasharal, you're up, brother. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, family. Hey, I'm a little sick right now, so excuse my voice, but talk about being humbled right now. I feel pretty humble, man. I could use all the energy I can. But I came in also late. I didn't hear the actual talk, but I've been hearing your comments for the last 40 minutes. And I have to say that as I've been reflecting for these last couple of weeks since I told JP, I took myself out of the Marco Polo to decompress, to find myself and to see where I was wrong, because it's usually not a factor of other people being wrong, but it's internal. When you have to examine yourself, when things don't converse correctly, when conversations don't go well, it's usually yourself. And so with that being said, I appreciate everybody's comments so far, because they all affect me in one way or another. I've been there in one way or another. And I especially like the sister's comment about how it comes in different forms. And even though we may be growing in knowledge of Yahuwah, we can be prideful in that. But there's different forms of pride. And the negative kinds is the ones that we're supposed to root out. For the more that I read the Torah, the more that I read the prophets and the writings, the more you see that humility is the humble ones are the ones that get exalted, and the elevated ones are the ones that are brought down. And if we ever point to ourselves as being, oh, I'm the source of this truth or this information, that's when we're going to be lowered. And it's the opposite way. For the humble ones are the ones that get elevated. And I'd rather be elevated by Yah's hand than to elevate myself. So I just appreciate everybody's comments so far. And just know, brothers, I have love for all of you guys, every single one of you. No hard feelings. Shalom.
Hallelujah. Praise Yahuwah, brother. It's always that time of reflection that gets us someplace in life, Like you said, if things aren't in line, usually we need to look at ourselves and allow ourselves to be checked and examined to see. And wherever that leads, Yahuwah's will be done, But glad you're here, and hope your voice gets better here soon. Praise Yahuwah for you, brother. All right, I did see a Mecca hand up. Then I'm going to come to you, Brother Nathaniel, and then you, Sister Robbie. I'm on my way, Mecca. Here we go. Shabbat shalom, brother.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. No, great message. This is a very important message. One of the key messages for us as believers, for us as who are taking this walk to follow Yah. Because like you said, when we get in those discussions, how do you respond? I just had a conversation with somebody over the last couple of days, and the Ruach had led me to switch the topic up because we were talking about, you know, keeping the commandments and grace and keeping the commandments, keeping the law, you know. And after I said everything I wanted to say, you know, I was led to say about, you know, grace and keeping the law, you know, how grace is overly preached and you know, once you receive grace, you need to change your life. Once I had said what I needed to say, the Ruach was like, stop. Like, at this point, you said everything. Switch the conversation up now, you know. And the other brother had brought out a interesting point about spiritual growth. So I said, okay, you know what? I've talked about grace. I've talked about the law enough. I don't want to overdo it. He brought up spiritual growth. Let's start talking about spiritual growth, spiritual things, and prayer, because that's the next aspect. And so we always have to check ourselves and allow the Ruach, listen for the Ruach to check us, because it will give you that feeling and tell you, like, okay, it's time. It's probably best to stop now. Like, you'll know, you sense it. And sometimes you can go against that, you know, because your pride will step in and say, you don't, they haven't gotten the message clear enough yet. Like, they don't understand yet. Keep going on, you know. And sometimes we need to listen to the Ruach, slow down. You know, there's a scripture, it says that, you know, even a foolish man seems wise when he keeps quiet, you know. So it was time for, you know, for me to, all right, let's start talking about more spiritual things now. What's the other aspects of the faith, you know? And so one thing that pride prevents is that rebuke or that correction. One of the strongest things about pride is it prevents people from accepting correction, humbling themselves enough to say, okay, I'm being rebuked right now. Let me hear and let me analyze. Let me not just get offended. You know, that's one of the strongest characteristics that I know about pride, is that it prevents you from receiving correction. You think you know everything and you don't want to hear what other people have to say. And that is deadly. That, I mean, every example that you read, you know, talking about Nebuchadnezzar and his son, it all rolls back to, do you want to receive correction, or do you want to wait till you've been brought down off your high horse, you know? And so that's, for me, that's one of the strongest things, you know, being humble, listening, and I think brother Tony said it, you know, analyzing yourself, analyzing what's been said, analyzing yourself. Okay, is what I'm, you know, being told, is it correct? Because more than likely, if somebody says something and it itches a nerve, it's probably true. And you probably need to check yourself on it. You probably need to humble yourself and say, okay, you know what? I can see that. I can see where I was wrong, you know, and humble yourself, because in that keeps relationships intact, you know, instead of the destruction of, you know, destroying relationships. And, you know, ultimately you will destroy your relationship with Yah, you know, because if you're pleasing Yah, you're pleasing men. But the moment you start having friction with men, you gotta check yourself, like, okay, am I doing something wrong that's not only displeasing them, or is also displeasing Yah? And you have to allow that correction to come in. And that's one of the things I know is this biggest characteristic of pride, is that it fights against rebuke and correction, you know. So
I agree with you.
No, great. Yeah.
One thing I will say, though, is sometimes when you're rubbing people the wrong way, it means you're bringing the right message too, though.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that absolutely. That is also true.
So it doesn't hurt to check yourself, but if you're bringing the truth of the matter, and you're not bringing yourself, then good chances are they're having friction with the word, you know, that you're bringing more than your pride, you know. So, but it's always good to keep you in check, for sure. So definitely appreciate your input there, Brother Mecca, as always. Brother Nathaniel Stone, Shabbat Shalom. Then I'm coming to you, Sister Robbie.
Shabbat Shalom. It's kind of interesting. The comment that I was going to give, it goes just right hand in hand with what Brother Mecca said, and also what Brother JP said earlier. I was most of the things, a lot of things been touched on pride. I just kind of wanted to share an experience that I just recently had. I had prayed. I do a lot of traveling, or I've done a lot of traveling, but now I'm kind of going to be in one area for a while. So I prayed for Yahuah to bring some people that I can kind of cultivate and help grow, and I can see. And so I met a guy. He's a Christian in my class, and we were talking for about 4 hours after class. We're getting into the Word, and we start talking about our foundational beliefs kind of in the beginning, and I felt the pride swelling up, not just in him but in me also, of I'm right, we're talking about Torah, and he's talking against Torah, and I'm bringing up scriptures, and I felt like there was like a wall that was being built up between the both of us, and if I would have kept on going, we would have parted ways, and that would have been it. Like, not just me, but if it would have kept on going, and I was able to decompress the situation. I prayed, in the middle of it, and asked, the Father to help me, Yahuah to help me kind of dissolve the situation, and I was given the inspiration to just find the common ground, and then also to tell him that, to let him know, like, I said, you believe that he's the Son of the Most High, that he died for our sins, the only begotten. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, and I said, and only through him is salvation. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So, like, everything from this point, like, we're brothers on that level. And then, like, when I touched that, it like brought, he realized, or it was like the two of us realized that, like, it wasn't about personal ego anymore. And then I brought up, I'm like, it's okay that we disagree. And that's what iron sharpening iron does. And I said, so this is, should be a good thing. If you agree, you believe this, and I believe that, we're going to get into the Word and why we're talking about it. But we don't have to necessarily convince each other here. You know what I mean? And when I brought that, it was like it melted, and then that's when the conversation, because it was towards the beginning of the conversation when this is going on, and that's when the conversation just really took off and started. 3-4 hours we were talking in the parking lot till the sun was down and it was starting to get cold, and then we both had to go about our day. But pride, it wells up of being right, even if you are right. I'm not saying, Torah, Torah, it's not done away with. It doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, but on that aspect, but it's how you approach it, and so it can even I just wanted to share that experience, that it's good when you're out teaching and you're out doing the Shema, you're out, you're in the way, and you're sharing the word of Yahuah as you're out in the world. It's important that we don't come off as correct, what I mean, even if we are correct, is like putting ourselves up on a pedestal, of being correct, because that's not a way that we're going to be able to reach people. So I just wanted to share that experience.
Hallelujah, brother. Great example of recognizing and making that shift. So, those are the kind of experiences that we need to share so we can recognize. It's like Sister Amy was asking, but appreciate your input as always, brother, and may you continue to, keep that bond growing and that truth continue to come out. Hallelujah. Sister Robbie, Shabbat Shalom to you. Good day.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I had heard it mentioned, and I really appreciate the fact that there is positive pride too, but it has to be done according to Yahuwah's glory and honor, to give him all the esteem and praise. And I was looking at Galatians chapter 6, verse 4, where it says, all must test their own work. Then that work, rather than their neighbor's work, will become a cause for pride. And so I was looking at some other translations trying to figure out exactly what it means. But I think it has to do with, we don't want to compare ourselves to others and say, okay, well, why can't I do what they do? The Father has gifts for all of us, and we have to test and just work within our own abilities and pray to the Father to help us to figure out what our works are and do those works and let the Ruach guide us. I was just thinking that even when we think of it personally and professionally, and most of all spiritually, some of us have come from dysfunctional family backgrounds, come from situations where you didn't know if you were worth anything, where you've been put down, and maybe if you were on drugs and alcohol, and now you go into recovery. One of the things you have to do is take a personal inventory of yourself and find out, have you ever accomplished anything? Do you have anything good that you could build on? Do you have any qualities or something? How can you be of service to others? And so when they go through that and discover what their own works or talents or abilities are, they say, okay, I'm worth something. If they can sing, or if they could draw, or do woodwork, whatever it is, they could take a little pride in themselves. And then they take that, and then they're encouraged to take whatever gift or ability they have and use it to help others, to bring glory, to the Father, because he wants us to help each other. And the same with us who have come out of different various religious backgrounds. If we might have had different positions, that we left, youth leader, special elder, first mother, running programs in that church system, and we come out of that. And then we get totally humbled, because they're like young children who have to learn, all over again, everything. And it takes a lot of humility. And then as we start becoming more, comfortable with Torah, we start thinking, okay, well, how can I, be of service, be of use to, Yahuwah, and to my sisters and brothers? What am I good at? What can I do? And then we, in time, I say, okay, I can help this way. I can do that. This is how I could, you take pride in what you could do to help your sisters and brothers and build up the assembly and so forth. So that's good. And then, I was thinking, okay, well, then we have to be careful, because then the negative pride could slip in and sneak in, in that situation too. So like it was mentioned already, that there's that balance. And that's what I'm striving for, is trying to find that balance, because I want everything I do and say to always give glory to Yahuwah and not to myself, and to always be humble, and to always know that I can't do anything without Yahuwah. Any skills, gifts, or abilities I have is because of him, because he's using me as a vessel to worship him and to please him. And so that's what kind of I was thinking that scripture, Galatians 6:4, might be talking about. But I'm open for any suggestions or different clarifications. All right. Thank you.
Hallelujah, sister. I think you're seeing things right. I would say what came to mind when you were talking about looking at myself and how come I can't have that kind of a gift? That's almost in covetousness, in a sense, where you're coveting somebody else's gift. It's interesting how that can align up with pride, in that sense that you're wanting something somebody else has, which is a sin, and then you're compounding it with another sin, where if there's a positive to being having pride with Yahuwah or in Yahuwah, the thing I think that separates it is that it's not about me or I. It's not looking at my abilities. So I have pride in Yahuwah that he's my Elohim. He can do all things. He does all things. He enables me to do all things. So it keeps it in perspective. If it's about him, I think it's okay to be prideful in him, as long as that doesn't cause you to have pride in yourself, because you're having pride in him. it can be a vicious circle. So we have to be cautious in all of these things for sure. But, for us to have pride in Yahuwah and declaring his name and his love and all of that type of stuff for us, I think he's okay with that. At least I believe so. So appreciate you, Sister Robbie. Always good input. Thank you. I'm going to go to those that are on the phone that can't raise their hand. Sister Kathy, Sister Miranda. You have something you'd like to add? I'm going to come to you, Sister Kathy, first. You there? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I was just here looking here in regards to what pride means, and conceit or being conceited plays a big role of pride also. And it says, conceit is excessive pride in oneself. Conceited and prideful people love to talk about themselves and their achievements, showing lesser regard for the accomplishments of others. Conceited and prideful people often take credit for every good thing that Yah has done in their lives and consider themselves superior to most other people. The Bible has harsh words for the conceited and prideful because pride gets in the way of all that Yah wants to do in and through us. And then it goes into Saul is a biblical example of a conceited and prideful man. The Bible describes him as the most handsome man in Israel. And God chose, Yah chose Saul to be the first king of Israel, and he had a great future ahead if he would have obeyed Yah. But Saul's conceit and pride grew with his popularity, and it did not take long for him to mess up God's authority in his life and make decisions that put him in the good light with other people rather than obey Yah completely. Saul decided that he knew better. 1 Samuel 15 recounts Saul's slide away from Yah's favor. The man who could have had it all got too big for his britches, and Yah removed him as king. So the conceited part, I think, of people I've known through my life, and
Right.
regarding to pride and conceit did play a big, part in their conversations. I, me. So I just wanted to throw that in. I found that interesting to believe, to see how conceitedness plays a big part of pride. Hallelujah.
Certainly. It's all about them.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. That's good feedback. Brother Rod, you had something?
Yeah, Sister Robbie was asking for clarification of what was meant in Galatians 6:4. Is that correct, sister?
Yeah, I'm cooking, Letitia. I'm still finishing up, getting ready. Okay, you're right.
I think she's on her phone.
Yeah, I'll mute her.
Okay. Yeah, no, she was asking about Galatians 6:4. So I was going to answer, but she's not. All right, so June just said answer for the edification of everyone else. So she was looking at Galatians 6:4, which reads, "But let each one examine his own work, and then he will have rejoicing in himself and not in another." So the context of the passage is talking about receiving a brother or sister that needs restoration because they failed in some type of way. They missed the mark. They've fallen into sin. They've trespassed. So receiving that brother or sister and not condemning them for what they did based upon your walk. In other words, condemning them for whatever, and because you've conquered that versus you lining yourself up with Yah and his law and his word. And the context is basically telling us to receive that brother, look to restore that brother versus looking at that brother in the way you walk, and then condemning them, so that when we examine ourselves, we are covered by Yahusha. So that's what that's talking about, bearing one another's burdens. Not sure if she heard it, but everyone else heard it, if they had any questions about it. So.
Way for you to, have your.
No, she's
She's
still.
still on the phone. All right.
Well, she can watch it in the video. How's that? You answered the question. All right, Sister Miranda, anything you'd like to add this morning? Shabbat Shalom. All right, she's not there. So, Sister Amy Olive Oil, something else you'd like to add this morning?
Yeah, I just wanted to put some scripture in regards to stuff on a good note to do with being boastful or proud in Yahuwah. The chapter is probably you're all aware of, 1 Samuel chapter 2, the prayer of Hannah. It says, and Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoiceth in Yahuwah, mine horn is exalted. So that would be she's lifting herself up. In Yahuwah, my mouth is enlarged over mine enemies, because I rejoice in thy salvation. So that was one that I wanted to bring out in regards to, the good side of boasting in Yahuwah. In the renewed covenant, there's a scripture which speaks of 1 Corinthians verse 27 to 31 says, but Yahuwah hath chosen the foolish things of this world to confound the wise, and Yahuwah hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty, and base things of the world, and things which are despised hath Yahuwah chosen, yea, things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh should glorify is this translation, but the word glorifieth is the same as esteem or boast, which would be pride as well, in if you wanted to use that term. It says, that no flesh should esteem in his presence or lift itself up in his presence. But of him are ye in HaMashiach Yahusha, who of Yahuwah is made unto us wisdom and righteousness and sanctification and redemption, that according as it is written, he that glorifieth or esteem or lift oneself up or boast, let him boast in Yahuwah, or glorify in Yahuwah, esteem them in Yahuwah. The other one is in Jeremiah chapter 9 verse I just wrote it. Jeremiah 9 23 and 24 says, thus saith Yahuwah, let not the wise man esteem in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man esteem in his might. Let not the rich man esteem in his riches, but let him, verse 24, but let him that esteem, or it's another translation says, but let him that boast in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am Yahuwah, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith Yahuwah. So I just wanted to add them scriptures to the group. But what I wanted to say, to add to what I spoke to you earlier before about pride, I wanted to ask a question. Would it be pride, to say the correct word, as being proudful in regards to parenting? This is like, how would it be with your child? So if I get angry at my child, example, or I get upset when he's disobedient, would that be me being proud as a mother because I'm proud that he, I get proud because he shouldn't? Would it be pride if I was to be upset and angry because he's not respecting me? So, because this is my biggest struggle, where my pride gets in the way sometimes, because I think, you shouldn't be speaking to me like that. I'm your mother, have respect, and so I'm trying to like get the balance in, because this is as you know, Brother Rick, this is my greatest struggle, being a mother. It's really hard. It's like I think it's easy to be a mother, but it's not easy to be a good mother, the mother that is expected of us from Yahuah. And so that's where my struggle is. And so I oftentimes get angry, and I'm kind of wondering if it's because I'm becoming proud in my disciplinaries towards my son. So I just don't know what you guys think.
That's an interesting question, because I can see it from the point you're asking the question. In my opinion.
Sorry, I hope everybody else can see what I'm saying. Did I make it sound difficult?
No, I would say the difficulty is seeing the pride in. I can understand that you want him to respect you, to treat you with respect, but is there pride in that? I can't really say that I see that there's a connection between being proud or prideful and trying to receive correction or give correction to your child about how he's responding or how he's treating you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because obviously with pride comes anger. So I get angry in the end with my son most days, even though I try my hardest not to, until I'm blue.
But I see your pride that you're getting angry. I don't see that connected to pride.
Okay.
I think it's connected to the disrespect or the disobedience.
Okay.
Brother Rod?
Yeah, I think it can depend on the context of what's going on as well. I mean, it's certainly not prideful to correct your child, specifically in a realm of respect or listening to you. But, however, you can be prideful in your correction. You can be extremely wrong in correcting your child from something they don't need to be corrected from. And because you refuse to see the truth of the matter, you go along with it anyway. That's being prideful.
Okay.
But in correcting your child to do something right, which is respect, not to dishonor his mother, not to bring shame to his mother and father, and correcting that child that way, there's nothing prideful about that. We can be prideful in our responses in the way we handle the situation based upon the context of what's going on. So there's a difference there. But.
Yeah, I understand. So because obviously often he does it when we're out in the supermarkets, and I get like ashamed and embarrassed, because it's like I'm sweating in the supermarket, yeah. So I was just thinking, I mean, that obviously may be connected to pride because people are watching as well, and so that can be kind of feel like I want to melt into the floor, when he. So I just wanted to see if there was a connection there. That's one thing I struggle with. So I was just trying to tick off the boxes, Well, I don't have a list, but I'm just having a look at making sure
the anger you definitely want to keep under subjection, because that's losing self-control.
Yeah, I know that.
You never want to correct your child in anger. If you're angry, you need to take a minute before you correct your child so that you don't sin. So
yeah, that's hard, Brother Rod. Being a single parent, that's hard to take a minute.
It's hard. It's hard. Yes, that doesn't mean it's not true and correct.
No, for sure. It's just my boy chases me around the house even when I try to get a break. So it's not always easy when you're on your own. So trying to look for mechanisms in that area.
I think those feelings are not necessarily prideful, though. I think it's maybe shame, or embarrassment,
Yeah.
Those type of things. I don't see that as pride, even though your response, like Brother Rod said, could be in pride because of how you're approaching it.
Yeah.
But I think there's those boundaries there. Sister Linda got something to say. Maybe she can bring some more.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I was just saying, what you got, Mama Linda, too?
Well, it doesn't apply to, specifically what you were saying, Sis Amy, but it still may help. Philippians 2, second chapter, starting with the 3rd verse. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, that each esteem others better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others.
Mhm.
Let this mind be in you, which was also in Messiah Yahusha, who being in the form of Elohim, thought it not robbery to be equal with Elohim, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even the death of the stake. I just want to jump over to 13. For it is Elohim which worketh in you, both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Do all things without murmurings and disputings. Praise Yah.
Sister Linda, can you tell me what them scriptures were again? Philippians and then
Yes, Philippians, the 2nd chapter,
yeah.
verses 3 through, you might as well, 3 through 14.
Thank you. And the next one.
You're very welcome.
What was the next one? Sorry.
No, that was the completion of it. The
Okay.
entirety of it is verses 3 through verse 14.
Okay, thank you, Akoti. Thank
You're
you.
welcome, sis.
Oh, yeah. Good information. Thank you, sister.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, I think that's the end of our study and discussion today. Appreciate everybody's input. And may Yahuwah continue to keep you, and make his face shine upon you and give you his shalom.